Hi, I'm Steve Reid from Steel Curtain Boxing and Fitness in Warwick, Rhode Island, 905 Warwick Avenue. And I'm here tonight with a very dear old friend of mine at the Coesit Inn in West Warwick, Christine Munroe, who we worked together about eight years ago. I was a supervisor at Anchor Recovery Community Center.
That's right.
And Christine was there getting her classes ready for Rick and doing some volunteer stuff in her internship. And she's got an amazing story. I've been following her on Facebook. It's sad to say that I don't see enough of her. I get to see her at the rallies and a lot of recovery stuff.
That's right.
And tell me, what's been going on since I've seen you last?
So much has been going on.
Wait, before we go on,
yes.
Just celebrated 15 years.
Just celebrated 15 years of continued recovery on February 12th. Pretty amazing.
That is big numbers.
If you would have asked me 15 years ago if that would have ever been possible, that would have been a no. I would have told you that you were crazy. So it is a huge accomplishment. And, you know, it's good to know that recovery is possible. You know,
that is.
It's not easy, but it is possible.
It is not. Yes, they. You work for the Family Treatment Drug Court.
I do.
All right. So I was under the understanding that you worked with juveniles, but you kind of just corrected me. Tell me a little bit more about that and what your job entails.
So within Rhode Island, we have a few different specialty courts. We have a juvenile drug court that does deal with the adolescents that are dealing with some issues. We also have a veterans treatment court that's over in Kent County, which is great. And we also have the criminal adult drug court. So that's over at Superior. And my specialty court is the family treatment drug court. So we deal specifically with the DCYF cases, so the child welfare cases. So the moms and dads that might be open to DCYF due to their substance use. And I'm a social worker that works on those cases.
Yeah, I've seen you grow so much in that field. Let's get into a little bit of your story. I know you got 15 years, so when I met you, you were well into your recovery.
Right.
I backpedal a little bit and let me know what was going on then.
So a little bit about my background is I have come from a pretty long line of people that use substances in my family. So there's a long history of substance use and mental health within my own family. I've been dealing with issues since I was a very young child. My mother, you know, my brother, we are all succumbed to the disease of addiction and also co-occurring mental health issues. I was actually a child in state care myself. So at the age of 14, I ended up going into DCYF custody, into child welfare custody, and I was in group homes. I started using very young. I was using at around 12, 13 years old, and my disease pretty much took off. I was dealing with...
What did you start using off with?
It was alcohol and marijuana at first, you know, and then it continued. So, you know, the usual stuff that you experiment with, you know, in high school and at that age. It was where most people are able to, you know, go to a party on Friday night and, you know, they kind of leave it alone, where, you know, that's where it started for me. Unfortunately, I can't say that's where it ended. It ended with jails, institution, and almost close to death for me. So I was using the substances to deal with a lot of my pain, you know, from coming up in a household that was not so great and not so loving and caring. And ending up in the system in state care, I really didn't have a lot of support and guidance then. So it was really hard for me to kind of get that support and guidance because I didn't have the family support to back it up. And it was hard, you know. Dealt with a lot of trauma, you know, we see that today where I work with my clients. It's the same thing. I mean, I tell people all the time I am like one of my clients. I have that lived experience. I understand them better than anybody else.
Right. How do you deal with that? You see it. the post-traumatic stuff?
Yes.
Do you
Yes.
have to deal with that on?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
I have to deal with it myself, you know, as a social worker, and that's really difficult to do. So they always say the best social worker has their own social worker.
Yes.
So like that's what I've been doing. Like I've been in treatment. I've never stopped working on my recovery since day one. You know, when I had my first child, that's kind of when the light went off in my head, and I realized that I could never put my children through what I went through as a child. It was really difficult for me. So that's kind of where my recovery started.
Right.
I ended up in a treatment facility with my first son, and I was pregnant with my second at that time. And this treatment facility is like amazing, and it's actually the only one in Rhode Island where you can have your children and recover at the same time.
I forget the
Starbirth.
Starbirth.
So
yes.
props to Starbirth because I am a product of that treatment facility. And now today, which is crazy, my story, because now today I work with the clinicians who helped me get to where I am today.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is pretty, you know,
you
my
can't
story.
Make that stuff up.
You can't make it up. It's just and that's where like giving back to the recovery community and people every day is like, that's just what I love to do, because somebody did it for me, and I wouldn't be here today speaking to you if somebody didn't reach out or have hope for me at that point in time.
Yeah, I do. I watch a lot of the stories on Facebook. I lose a lot of. We do. We start going our own way. I had left Anchor, I got promoted, and you know, you kind of miss that crowd. And all we have now is social media of how to connect with one another.
Right.
I do see. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of people to drug overdoses.
Yep. The epidemic is run wild right now. It's so sad.
It's so, and you know, I try and wrap my head around it where, you know, I have these young people in the gym now, and I left the field, and I try and like, nothing scares them.
No.
And I'm thinking, well, why should they? Because we weren't.
Right.
And, you know, it's that simple, that forget it thing, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the forgetter. Right. Yeah.
And
you got to remember where you came from.
Oh, my God, yeah. And, you know, nobody could tell us.
No. I mean, people were trying to save my life from the age of like 15. I did not get it until I was about 27. So there were, I mean, there was 8 years where I was, you know, in and out of treatment facilities. I was in and out of, you know, detoxes, hospital stays. I was homeless on the street. I was actually incarcerated at a point in time in my life, and nothing changed me. Like, it wasn't until I really started doing the inner work on myself. That's, you know, the surface stuff is, you know, helpful too, but when I really started digging deep into that whole, you know, the trauma and everything that I went through as a child, like that's when things started working for me, and surrounding myself with recovery.
With recovery.
Yes.
And that's one of the big things I tell my people of, and even the people in recovery is, you know, you know, I have 20 years, but they haven't done the work around it. And, you know, I once had a great sponsor who passed away, but I didn't know what he was saying about, I paid so much for my therapy and this and that. And he was actually a therapist.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, unfortunately, I had the 7 years. I relapsed after 7 years, and I have 4 years now.
Right.
But I went to Mississippi and for 90 days, and they did this little thing called EMDR.
Yes, yes, I know all about that.
Life changing.
Yep.
That was the meat and potatoes right there.
Yeah.
And going a little bit, have you done EMDR?
I have not done EMDR. I work with a therapist, and I've been working on and off with therapists for a long time. I haven't done that. It's more like a CBT, DBT, which is like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, like all of these different kind of modalities that we use. But for me, I have not had to utilize that. I have heard amazing things from actually clients and friends of mine that have done that. Yeah. And it is kind of, because it does work with the traumatic events. Like that's kind of,
wow.
It is.
It was eye-opening. Yep. And, you know, and every person's different.
Right.
So I don't, you know, you need to do this, because I'm not a therapist.
No, it doesn't work for everybody.
But it's getting at that childhood trauma stuff, the core
stuff,
things of, Because like you said, and I love when I interview people because it's like, oh my God, she's telling my story again. And it's like drowning out those feelings.
Yeah, that's what I did.
That's all we did. It was crazy.
We wanted the pain to go away.
Oh my God.
That's it.
And we didn't even realize it.
Nope.
It's like, okay, let's quiet the demons.
Right. That's it.
And you know, and trying to get that into the young people.
Right.
I have a collage at the gym where it's pictures of the people I've either worked with or friends of mine that have overdosed.
I also have the same thing where I work.
And
it's right next to me.
And it's the most powerful thing of when I grab my kids by the neck and say, you know, oh, they'll tell me all I do is smoke weed. And it's like, come over here.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? It's not so much about the weed.
Right.
It's about the bad decisions.
Of course, yeah.
You know, and I had a girl tonight, young girl, 14 years old, and she shut right down. She didn't know what that wall was, and she's telling, you know, some shenanigans she's getting into, and it's that powerful where it's like, oh my God, you know. And I tell them, I don't want you on that wall.
Yeah, it's really difficult with the adolescents. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old, all boys. Like all four of my children are in that like tween teen kind of like young adult stage, and their like development is just like hindered. Like they're very selfish, and just as I was. And so it takes a lot for them to understand like the ramifications of just the behavior that starts at 13, 14, 15. I mean, I have come full circle. I have seen my children have gotten in trouble. My children have gotten into substances already. And even watching their mother, everything that I've gone through, all of the meetings, all of the therapy, everything that I've went through, and it's still like not, they're like, whoa, this is a great idea. Let's smoke some weed. And I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you doing? You know, you know my story. I'm very open about my recovery to my kids. I mean, since a very young age, and they still like, they're not there, you know?
Yeah. Treatment facilities. You said you were at several.
Yes.
Any out of state?
None out of state. All in Rhode Island, actually.
Okay. What was the longest you've had for treatment?
So back in the day, it was about 2004, 2005. We used to have state beds before this insurance got in the way, which I say in the way because it's a constant barrier for my clients now to get into treatment and stay in treatment long term. I was literally at this facility for 16 months inpatient, which is absolutely unheard of nowadays. You will never see that.
Where was that at?
It was at Starbirth.
Starbirth, okay, so that was great.
It changed my life. Like I went in that program, I didn't know how to shower. I didn't know how to brush my teeth. I had been living on the street for a very long time. I was completely clueless as to how to even take care of myself. And that program literally built me up from nothing. And taught me how to live.
And that's the, you know, okay, so I'm way before your time. My first facility was Edge Hill, Newport.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So, of course, I was there for the country club atmosphere.
Of course.
And so, you know, I was there for every other reason but myself. And, of course, a month out, I was back to relapsing. And that's one of my pet peeves with the Rhode Island system of let's keep throwing Band-Aids on everything and not actually go after the underlying causes of what's going on.
Right.
It actually, if you think about it, it's a quick fix.
Yes.
If you go after the underlying issues, but for some reason, they rather keep handing out.
Go back.
It's a recidivism.
And they go back.
The prisons, you know, if you could put some systems into the prison system where while they're there, you can teach them how to shower and how to be a, you know, where I went was a professional program because I had been in the field and I was up there with surgeons. It was crazy. I'm like, what am I doing here? Here I am. I worked at Anchor, you know, in the Providence Center. And but it was crazy because they had licenses to lose, and they were. I was with one surgeon that he was smoking meth before he went into surgery, And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And they, that was the real stuff up
Right.
there. And I had a psychologist that basically took out my testicles and tap danced on them in the middle of the floor. And I was like, whoa, where'd this lady come from? To the point where,
I like that.
you're not supposed to, I'm Steve Reid.
Right.
You're not supposed to be
Yeah.
calling me out. And my God, it was like, I even tried, she had left there. And during the pandemic, she went to Florida after that. During the pandemic, I was hoping to scam. I still got the scam in there.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to like, oh, good. Now I can get the teller, on the video.
Right.
And unfortunately, it didn't work because she's not. You have to be licensed in Rhode Island.
Yeah,
Those little
right.
things. But that I know your frustration of getting people into treatment.
Awful.
Yep. Me and George O'Toole were the first
Right.
ED recovery coaches that went into the ED, and there was nothing worse. And again, it was throwing money
Right.
where it could be going into treatment. And I would be like, okay, so we go to the emergency room. What do we do with them?
Right.
Oh, we make them members of Anchor?
You have this person ready, willing, and
Oh,
able.
my God.
And that, when you have somebody there in front of you, and this happens to me on a daily basis, they're ready, willing, and able to take that step into treatment. If you do not get them at that point in time and you let them go, they're gone.
That's
so,
it.
and if there's no beds, then you don't have a choice.
Forget
Or
it.
you end up like, they might go to Butler for 3 days.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
Yep.
like a spin dry. You go out and you come back, and then you go right back to the same place. So
It
it's
is.
like, it's so difficult to watch, and unfortunately, it's insurance is like a huge barrier. There's not enough funding for residential. There's not enough funding for even intensive outpatient. Not enough funding for treatment across the board right now.
Well, I know they did some cuts. The last, I don't know
People
the
are
numbers.
not happy about that.
I know. I haven't seen numbers in a long time because of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But would it be possible to all of the other things that, see, my idea is to put so much funding into the treatment part of it. Open up one of the buildings at the ACI grounds.
Right. Yeah.
They're going
There's
to waste.
plenty of abandoned buildings all
Exactly.
across the state.
Exactly. So there's half. And you know what? I think there would be enough people to want to go there to work, just to lower the numbers of overdoses.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your thought on that? Of, okay, maybe someday we could stop throwing all the money at these other programs, which okay, you take all these other smaller little mom and pop places are feeding off the funding.
Right.
Because, and I get it, they probably think they're doing grand things.
Right.
You take the ED program.
Right.
Okay? Really not sensible. I would be told to, oh, you know what, just put your time in for this and that.
Yeah.
I actually felt like I was stealing.
Cheat in the system.
The checks that I was taking home, I was like, oh my God.
Because you weren't doing much.
I wasn't doing anything.
Right.
How
What a
did I
waste of
help?
money.
I did
It's a
more.
waste of money.
Yeah. And, programs like that they could be going into
Right.
good
Significant long-term treatment.
long-term treatment. And I think this state really needs to get off its ass
Yeah.
and go towards
Well,
that.
so many times when I talk to some clients, and if they have the funds or if they have like really good insurance, they'll go out of state.
Right.
We see that with the juveniles. Even with the juveniles, if they need some kind of residential setting, they're going out of state. So the state is paying for the juveniles. If they need long-term treatment somewhere else,
And they're flipping
millions of dollars,
Yeah.
because we just don't have the resources here in Rhode Island, which is just absurd to me. It just doesn't make sense. We're paying so much more money to send somebody out of the state for these facilities. It's mind-blowing to me. It doesn't make any sense at all.
That's what it's like. And all these big higher-up people, and I'm not going to mention any names or anything, but they're sitting there, look what I did, look what I did. You're really not doing anything.
Right. I've seen a huge push for medication-assisted treatment, and needless to say, medication-assisted treatment is life-saving, and it saves millions of people. So much federal money has come in to our state for medication-assisted treatment, but there's not
At what price?
So right, I mean, it's helpful and it has saved lives, and
I get that.
I'm very grateful that we have it because it does help people.
Right.
At the same time, now they're on medication-assisted treatment, but they're not able to. So they get to see a clinician, a counselor, once a month.
Once a month.
That's it.
And that's it.
15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Like, what kind of care is that?
You're
prescribing another narcotic to somebody to try and help them get off.
It's so frustrating.
But then there's, like, the treatment piece is so important.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just not there. It's so lacking. They're just throwing, like, the medication at them, which can be problematic for somebody that has a narcotic problem.
Yeah. And who's getting rich on that? It's the boxing doctors.
Please.
I know. We could sit here.
I have people that go into a detox facility that may not have been using opioids and come out on Suboxone.
Isn't it?
I mean, it's just, I'm old school from back in the day. Like, that's not, you would utilize MAT if they were trying to come off.
Right.
I mean, that's just what we were taught.
Have a recovery plan when you leave.
People and there's none of that. There's none of that. They give them a script and say, your appointment's set up for 4 weeks now, and good luck. And it's just,
I worked at the CSU in Providence Center, and it was like, okay, take a number, boom, 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 and you're just a number.
Right. There's so much that goes into recovery, and it's not just about throwing medication at people. It's not just about 12-step fellowship. It's not just about treatment. There's so many variables that go into, like, this holistic, like, total, like, human person. Like, it's not just one thing. There's so many things that are needed for people to be successful.
And it's knowing themselves.
Right.
And like you said, the holistic. I'm very holistic. I'm anything I could jump on. I have, I'll invite you next time. I have gong bats at the gym.
I love that. I'm all about that.
In my gym, I have gong bats.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is great. It is.
And
some of that stuff works for some people and some of it doesn't. Like, it's a very individual, like, there's multiple pathways to recovery, as we know, right? And, some people do well. Like, I'm not saying that this is just, some people do well with just medication-assisted treatment, and that's great. But most people don't. I mean, it's just my experience.
Well, we go, and here's another thing, and I now that we're on a roll here, and it's a great conversation of what's going on, but the full recovery. Okay, at my worst, I was a scumbag. You're not going to sit there and tell me peace, love, and hand me a flower.
You're not hearing nothing. You're not hearing it's not going to work.
Down the road, that might work, but you're not going to tell me until I'm in touch with myself.
Right.
And that takes some time, and that takes the EMDs and the facing of the trauma, and they're missing that whole point.
Absolutely.
It kills me. Oh, man.
It's very frustrating. For people that have gone through the process of recovery and really are working their recovery and then work in the field, it literally drives you crazy. Like, literally. Like, I bang my head up against the wall on a daily basis when I'm dealing with other providers. It's frustrating, because I'm watching my client and they're begging for help and they're begging for treatment and they need this and they need that and it's just not available. And I feel like my hands are tied,
There's nothing more frustrating than the people I've come up with that have turned into the full recovery.
Yeah, right. I know,
like,
it's tough.
Oh my God, did you forget where you came from?
Yeah, it's hard. And it's also hard being in long-term recovery and getting to know these people and watching your friends die. That's been really hard for me in recovery, is watching, like, my friends pass away. And it's like every day I'm going on Facebook and it's like, this person is gone and that person is gone, and all of these relationships that I had that they had good recovery. I mean, they were working a program, they were doing what they needed to do, and they had a slip, and now, with the epidemic, it's you can't slip. You just can't slip right now. If you slip, like, you're dead. Like, it's scary.
My real drug of choice was cocaine. And in my thing of, like, how do you touch cocaine? How do you wreck something like cocaine? I hate to say this jokingly,
right?
But it's like, why ruin a good thing? You know, it's but of course, and I say that jokingly, but it's like, thank God they do put that stuff in there, because I can tell you right now, I didn't have desire to do it, but I have less of desire now.
Yep.
And that's the thing that I wish on these slips of, like, you know, how many of us can say, "Oh, I trust my drug dealer"?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That,
okay.
Right.
No, it's not gonna happen.
No. They're out to make profit. They're out to make. They're making money off of you. That's their business.
And if you
they're
die,
going to be able to cut. You know what I'm saying? If they're going to be able to make a little money from, like, adding this or doing that, like, you never know what you're getting. You never know what you're getting.
Yeah, even before fentanyl. I mean, I can't even tell you some of the stuff, you know, I put on my nose. It's like, oh my God, it's like kerosene.
It's atrocious to watch the young, like, I have people on my caseload, they're young moms and dads, 19, 20, 21 years old with a fentanyl habit. It's like... And
they go after the fentanyl. And I get it. You know, it's like... I would say
about 85, and this is true, 85 to 90% of our cases are all fentanyl right now in the family treatment drug board.
Wow.
Opiates, fentanyl. And you won't see heroin anymore. I haven't seen it in years.
Really?
At all.
That's unbelievable. It is. It's, you know, I don't, it is mind-boggling.
It is.
Unfortunately, I'm sure you see the rate of overdose deaths at a higher, because that's what they go for, the fentanyl.
That's it.
And now we have grandparents raising these kids.
Yes. So that is a huge piece of, like, my work. So many grandparents. And I wish that there were more support for them, too.
I know.
There's a whole generation of grandparents right now that are taking on adopting these children, our guardianships, you know, and their parents, their children are no longer here.
Right.
And now they're raising their grandchildren.
And they think, you know, okay, we're going to move to Florida and retire. And no, it's not that anymore.
Right.
It's, nope, you're raising your grandchildren because, unfortunately, your kids are, they're going.
And who, as a grandparent, and I'm speaking for myself, I would never want my grandchildren to end up in a non-relative home or in the custody of somebody else.
They're not going to have it.
Right. I would do anything for my, if and when, hopefully not anytime soon, that I'm having grandchildren.
Right.
Let's knock on wood there, right?
Yeah.
But that I would
It is at your doorstep, though.
I would
we'll
move
throw
mountains.
That out there.
I would move mountains to make sure those grandchildren came home with me.
Exactly.
I mean, you know?
Yeah. But you brought up a good point. You know, there should be more support for these grandparents. There's... I see it. You know, I have grandparents bringing their kids into the gym to learn boxing.
Right.
You know, and it's like, I don't even have to ask where the parents are. You know, it's like, if they have an overdose, they're just, you know, non-existent. They're just gone. And, you know, I can hear my father and mom and dad, if that ever, you know, that's, you know, it's just, it really is sad.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about the grandparents that actually, they've lost their own children, you know, and, you know, the trauma that they've been dealing with for years about just dealing with their children's substance use. And then they have children, which is the grandchildren, and, you know, now they have to raise them. And
deal with that.
It's all encompassing and overwhelming for the grandparents. And I know that there's some support groups out there, but there's not enough, you know.
You know what I find, and I brought this up, I do a lot of life coaching now, get away from the other treatment and stuff, but I have a lot of young people and their parents are in recovery, and I learn more and more about this, of the adult children of alcoholic parents, and how powerful that is. Even at adolescent ages, I just recently suggested to one of, I'm doing a mentorship with the Met School.
Yes,
and I'm mentoring one of the students. And both his parents are in recovery. And I mentioned to the counselor that, I said, you know what? I said, why not start him now on therapy to nip that
Right.
and face those blockages, because I can see a lot of it because I've done that work and stuff, and it's like, oh my God, this will help him out.
Absolutely.
And there is, and I know to get into a therapist today is
we're just talking about this. I had a client that it took 6 weeks to just get an individual therapist because of the wait lists are so long right now.
And that's with state insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. State insurance.
Yep.
6 weeks just to see it there, just to get in.
That's horrible.
It's
And for how long?
Right. And then in 6 weeks, like we're talking about like people with significant mental health needs, high risk, high need. Like within that 6 weeks, like they've got nothing. Like, you know, it's awful.
It is horrible. All right. I know we mentioned you celebrated 15 years.
Yes.
Yep. I remembered a lot when we worked at Anchor that Holly Sakala advised you in a lot of your college. You just got your master's in 2018.
I did. So
with 4 boys.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, we spoke about this on the phone.
Yeah, so I actually started taking classes at CCRI when I was at Starbirth.
Yeah.
And it took me an extremely long time.
Yeah.
I just kept going little by slow. So like 2 classes here, 3 classes there. That's all I could do. I could never go full time.
Right.
But I knew that social work and working with people with addictions and substance use and mental health was like, that was it for me. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And it's because somebody helped me. I mean, there's hope out there for people, you know,
That's
and I'm the face and voice of recovery is really important as well because we just don't see it.
Right.
We see people overdosing. We see people dying. We see all of this like negative attention towards addiction, but there's also this beautiful side, right?
Yep.
This beautiful side of recovery that happens for people, and there's not enough of that like out there in the media, on TV. Like you just don't see a lot of it. Like they glorify the drug use. They glorify
we have to. That's it's putting bad news on top of bad news on top of bad news, and that's people's comfort zone.
Right.
You know, if I'm having a bad day and I'm going to eat that up.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, that's the road we're turned down. Right. And, you know, I love that the Wave gave me this opportunity and, you know, interview extraordinary people like yourself. I love it. You know, I was, even before my last one was done, I had watched you on Facebook, and I said, you know what, I got to reconnect, and I'm going to grab her.
Yeah, so what was I doing? I think it was just recently where I had just celebrated my 15 years in February, and I was asked by one of my judges that I work with at the court.
That's what it was.
And to teach lawyers about best practice.
That's what stuck out.
With social work. And it just blew my mind because it was very, very close to my anniversary of my recovery. And I went back, like you go back and think, like when you get that anniversary, like you go back a little bit and you're like, if somebody had told me while I was sitting in that residential facility that I would be sitting there with a judge, right, in Rhode Island to the Bar Association, you know, doing
what caught my eye.
A CEU, it was like a continuing education credit for a bunch of lawyers for Rhode Island,
and you're
teaching them how, like, best practices for, like, specialty courts, drug court. I would have told you that you were crazy.
That's it.
I would have. I would have laughed in your face. I really would have.
I love it.
Yeah.
You know, so proud of you.
Yeah.
You've just come
thank
so
you.
far.
I'm very proud of you too.
You know,
we've kept connection throughout, and social media is great for that, right?
Yes.
That's what we get to see our friends, and you know, our lives are very busy. I mean, my life has been extremely busy.
It is.
I work full time for the state, and I also waitress part time.
That's
and
right.
I have the 4 boys, so it's
crazy. And then you sit there and you wonder, like we spoke on the phone, you know, oh my God, how did I do that?
How did I do it?
How did I do that?
How did I get through an internship and 2 jobs and raising 4 kids and my master's? I don't know. It blows my mind when I look back. I don't know.
And there's a flip side to that. It's like when we were out there using and
I would do anything to get the drugs.
Like, how did we do that?
Right.
Like how?
Yeah.
How?
Right.
You know, I can tell you, I did a lot of cocaine.
Yeah. Same.
I didn't have a $200,000 a year job.
No.
You know,
right.
and it's like, my God, what you know. And when you flip that of what you did to where you are today, you know what, the question is, how did I do that? It's
Right.
like, what's next?
Right. What's next? Exactly.
What's next?
Right.
Christine, I am so blessed and
Thank you.
so
Thank you
to
for
have
having
you here
me.
tonight.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank
God.
you so much.
But I'm, you know, looking forward to seeing what's next for Christine
Absolutely.
Munroe.
Same with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.